Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. First and foremost, I'm your host, Marcus Vargas, guys, and first and foremost, I wanna make sure you guys are doing okay. I hope you're healthy and safe. I know this, the pandemic is still going on, even though it sort of feels like recently it's sort of not been in the forefront of people's minds as much. It seems like at least the attention about it is slowly dying down. We've gotten past that huge first wave of panic, and now people are sort of settling in and getting used to life in times of COVID-19. So even so, everyone should still be being responsible and socially distancing and making sure keeping everyone around them safe as well, not just themselves. But guys, our show is pretty packed for today. A lot of it is going to be post-draft talk, as that's basically the talk of the town now. We talked a lot of post-draft last episode, but we're going to just continue here today. And today, what I actually want to start off with is a sort of post-draft power rankings for next season, because I think some teams made some excellent moves and have moved up in the power rankings, and some other teams not so much. Sorry, Packers fans. But so let's do that now, and later we'll get to fantasy football, talk about some more rookies, because I only did I know I only did the first round of rookies in the last episode because I was saving the second round for this one, and I know there are some impact players drafted not in the first round, obviously. So with that, let's get started with these power rankings. So at number 1 here, guys, no, it's not because I'm a Chiefs fan. It's because they're the defending Super Bowl champs. The Kansas City Chiefs I have here at number 1, and for the post-draft analysis of sorts, I'm honestly putting them here more confidently right now than ever because they drafted LSU running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round. He is arguably, if not the best pass-catching running back of this class. He is so shifty, he has great vision, and he's been compared to Brian Westbrook. I've talked about this before. When Veach and Andy Reid had a conversation, the GM Brett Veach, Andy Reid the head coach, for those of you who don't know, when they had a conversation, Brett Veach told Andy Reid, hey, look at this guy. I think he might remind you of someone named Brian Westbrook. And Andy Reid said Edwards-Helaire is actually better than Brian Westbrook. So, I think about it like this. Last year we saw just exactly what Mahomes could do with all these weapons, right? And we essentially saw him do that without a run game, without a predominant force at running back. Of course, Damian Williams showed up in the Super Bowl, and that's mostly what a lot of the country saw. But if you watch a lot of Chiefs games during the year, during the regular season, the running back position was really on the back burner. It could have been any of the three. I honestly believe that LaShawn McCoy or Damian Williams could have done just as similarly in the Super Bowl had LaShawn McCoy been suited up. I'm pretty sure he was just a healthy scratch for that game. Didn't even suit up to play in the Super Bowl. Not sure why, because they made the move to get him, even though knowing he's a veteran, knowing he has fumbling issues. I guess that's where I would give Damian Williams the edge. But regardless, it feels like that offense was that powerful, but it still wasn't even at its 100% potential. Now, you draft a first-round running back, a guy who can be a workhorse. He was at LSU, a guy with less wear and tear than a lot of these other backs, which is, probably one of the bigger reasons that the Kansas City Chiefs drafted him, among, Patrick Mahomes saying, I want this guy, among other things. But I think it's sort of definitely going to be scary for the rest of the league to defend these guys, knowing that they're adding a lethal weapon coming out of the backfield. It was easier to focus only on the pass game, and even then they were unstoppable because you knew they weren't running the ball. But now, with a running threat, I mean, come on, guys. Of course, I could talk about the defensive woes because that's always a problem in Kansas City. But, with leaders like Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, Chris Jones is still on the team. I believe in them, and I believe that they can get better. And they only need to be a little bit better than they were, clearly. I mean, hey, if they just play the same, we're going to make the Super Bowl again, right? So just slight improvements, and we've got great athletic players in the draft. L'Jarius Sneed, super quick guy. Willie Gay is one of the top athletes in the draft. He was second in the 40. He might have had tops in the vert jump. He was basically as athletic as Isaiah Simmons. So he's a very, very athletic guy. Of course, he had problems in school, but I think with this draft, we definitely sit where we were at number 1 prior. Now, for number 2, I can't remember if I had the 49ers here or the Ravens, but I believe I had the Ravens, and I'm keeping the Ravens here, guys. I know some people might want to put the 49ers here, but it is so hard to deny the powerhouse potential of the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens probably had one of the, if not the best draft of 2020. They sort of just let the draft fall to them, and then when the talent was there, it just happened to be a need of theirs, and they took the best guy available at their need as well. The 28 overall pick that they had, they got the linebacker out of LSU, I believe it was Patrick Queen, and, not that, Lamar Jackson should be, he's an analyst on linebackers, but he called him Ray Lewis Jr. On IG Live, and, of course, we don't expect linebackers to come out of the draft being Ray Lewis, but as I mentioned before, only 3 times I believe the Ravens have picked a linebacker in the first round. One of them was Ray Lewis, and one of them was C.J. Mosley, both very quality players. Not only that, the Ravens ended up drafting J.K. Dobbins in the second round. Big threat in the run game. Mark Ingram is getting older. Not that they necessarily needed a, new, young, fresh running back because, they have Gus Edwards, they have Justice Hill. So J.K. Dobbins has his work cut out for him to, carve out a role in the offense, especially with Lamar Jackson constantly running the ball. But this team basically used every single one of their picks in the draft to fill holes that they had. And I think they did an outstanding job, especially getting a linebacker in the first round to help. Getting Calais Campbell in the offseason to help that run defense that was so porous. I think the Ravens are really becoming a complete team. They got a wide receiver later on in the later rounds. I think they're doing exactly what they need to do to go back to the Super Bowl and make a run and possibly win it this time. So number 2, guys, Baltimore Ravens, they're going to be very, very scary. They might be scarier than they were last season. So we're going to have to keep an eye on them for sure. Now, at number 3, guys, I have the New Orleans Saints, which might be a bit controversial considering that the San Francisco 49ers were just in the Super Bowl but have fallen out of my top 3. But the Saints have such a talented roster all around that they really didn't have that many holes, to draft for. I think, and as a lot of people saw, I think they only made 4 total picks. They sort of just went up and got the guys that they saw as quality guys instead of worrying about quantity and getting a bunch of role players or depth players. Cesar Ruiz was an excellent pick. A lot of people had him graded as their sort of top interior lineman, and the talk is he's going to be possibly starting at guard for the New Orleans Saints, of course, providing Drew Brees with some interior protection, which is good. They had a great value pick in Zach Bond. He's going, a lot of people had him going, maybe he had late first round grades, maybe second round, but he slipped to the third, and they got him there. He'll be good in pass coverage for them. And I think they did need to upgrade the linebacker position. And I think also them later on grabbing a tight end was very smart because they really haven't had this, wow tight end since Jimmy Graham, right? So, I mean, and that's not, Jared Cook is just fine. Josh Hill has played his role just fine, but I think hearing Sean Payton talk about the tight end they grabbed, they have a certain plan for him. He's saying, he can move, he's got good hips, and they plan to use him as a blocking tight end. So, knowing that they have a plan for a certain guy and they went up and got him, that's always good. And I think their roster, just the way it was before the draft, was definitely solid. I think with Drew Brees' last ride, and they all know that this is the last ride for him, they're going to be playing with a mission now more than ever. They know that they can't leave any games in the refs' hands, or they're probably going to lose it. They're going to have to do what they need to every single game of this season, this upcoming season, to make it to and win that Super Bowl. And I think just because they're just a more well-rounded, talented roster, they have something to prove to make up for last year, because it was disappointing. Drew Brees' injury, Alvin Kamara having sort of a down year, Drew Brees having that disappointing game in the playoffs. It just seems like something was off. So, I think they come back with a vengeance, and I have them at number 3. Now, at number 4, here's where I have the San Francisco 49ers. And it has less to do with their draft, because I think they had a good draft, and adding Trent Williams was a very, very good move. I think, Joe Staley just retired. They basically get another, phenomenal tackle to protect Jimmy Garoppolo, and it feels like what they're doing is going all in for Jimmy G to have success, and that is exactly why I have them at number 4, because I don't believe in Jimmy Garoppolo. I've never believed in the Jimmy Garoppolo hype. I understand why people sort of bought into it, but when they gave him that massive contract before he had even played a full NFL season, I was sort of flabbergasted. Jimmy Garoppolo has not played up to the standards of his contract, or how much perceived value the 49ers had in him, and I don't think he's a killer. I don't think he has that, that sort of level to him to go out there and win big games. I don't think, that's a franchise guy, to be honest. That's just my opinion, but I think the 49ers are investing too much and putting too much on the shoulders of Jimmy Garoppolo. We saw what happened in the Super Bowl when Kyle Shanahan tried to let Jimmy G take that game into his hands and win it. Everyone thought that the 49ers should have been running the football and letting the running backs take care of business. They put it in Jimmy Garoppolo's hands, and Jimmy Garoppolo did what Jimmy Garoppolo does. He turned the ball over. He turns the ball over a lot. He's usually going to give teams a chance to pick it off once or twice in a game. While, they did have a good draft, adding Brandon Ayuk, I think, was a solid pick. I don't think that Jimmy Garoppolo, even with, the new weapons, is going to be doing much. And so with that, guys, we are running out of time. So that's my top 4. We're going to continue. We'll only do about a top 15. I want to do, just the playoff teams, and then maybe 1 or 2 guys who might sneak in. Remember, next season is the 14-team playoffs. So that's why we're going that high. So with that, guys, we're going to take the short break. Hope you enjoy it. When we get back, like I said, we'll get back into it. But yeah, guys, just to recap that, I got Chiefs, Ravens, Saints, and 49ers. So enjoy the break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alrighty, welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Today's show, guys, is all about post-draft power rankings. So we continue here. We left off at our number 5 pick. So for number 5 here might be a shocker to some people, but it's a team, that I think actually has potential next year to shock a lot of people. So that's why I put them here. Number 5, guys, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the reason why I put them here over teams, maybe like the Titans or the Bills, is because I think they're better than those teams, especially after this draft. I think the Tennessee Titans, I'll talk about them later. Let's talk about the Cowboys, guys. CeeDee Lamb was the steal of the first round. I think everybody knows that. There's really no denying that. And while I think, it wasn't a need for the Dallas Cowboys, it's just a case of the rich getting richer. If I've learned a thing or two from my Kansas City Chiefs, it's that you can never have too much offense, and you can never have too many amazing players at skill positions, right? Of course you can, Cleveland. But if you do it well and you have the right personalities on your team, immense talent everywhere on the offense certainly can shine and win you a Super Bowl, no matter how bad your defense might play. So, the Dallas Cowboys are here because, honestly, at this point in time, even though I'm as much of a Cowboy hater as the next guy, they're my pick to win the NFC East. The Eagles draft, to me, was just very disappointing, and I think the Cowboys did a good job, even though, some people might not be high on Trayvon Diggs. They picked up, they tried to fill the hole at corner. They picked up the DT Neville Gallimore, and CeeDee Lamb was, many people's number 1 consensus wide receiver in the draft. So the fact that he fell to 17, I think, was pretty insane in and of itself. And I think it's interesting to think about, I think if the Cowboys would have known this prior to the draft, I think you would have seen a much different draft plan. I don't think Amari Cooper signs this massive extension because they know that they can grab CeeDee Lamb as his replacement. But the reason why I really liked this pick is because I think, a lot of teams sometimes too often, they pass on talent for need. For example, Isaiah Simmons slipping to pick number 7 or 8, I think it was, to the Cardinals. I think, sometimes teams just need to grab the talent when the talent is so immense and so raw and, just like eye-popping. I think Cowboys did the right thing here, scrapping whatever plan that they had, because there's no way they thought CeeDee Lamb would be available at 17. I sure didn't. I thought, maybe the Jets, maybe the Raiders were going to grab a different receiver, not Henry Ruggs. Speculation was that Ruggs might slip into the 20s. So to see him picked, I think it was 11th or 12th overall, was pretty insane. So this was a great pick. They had a very interesting draft. I think, they're the clear favorites to win the NFC East, and I think, they have the potential with that kind of offense to definitely rank in the top 5. Now, for my number 6 pick, I have here the Tennessee Titans. And I mentioned them while I was talking about the Cowboys, and I think the Cowboys have the potential to be a better team than them because the Titans are pretty one-dimensional, right? I mean, if Derrick Henry's not pounding that rock and just blasting through people, their offense basically is sort of not useless, but it's just so one-dimensional. You know what they're going to be doing, right? They're going to keep pounding the rock, and where they succeed is when Derrick Henry makes teams so scared they can play action and the guy's wide open 80 yards down the field. They lost Jack Conklin, who was a big part of Derrick Henry's success, and while they did pick up a lineman in the first round who looks to be definitely serviceable, and he's going to compete for that starting role, Conklin was very, very important, and just even sometimes slight change can make a huge difference. Never mind the fact that the Titans drafted another running back in the third round who they might be leaning towards. Remember, Derrick Henry didn't get his massive extension. He's on the franchise tag. They might be leaning to go in a different direction because they know, a running back like Derrick Henry, he doesn't have as long as a shelf life as other running backs because he's taking so much contact. He's so big, and he just, he's getting hit so many times every single game. So I have the Titans here, guys, because do I think that they could do it again? Yes, I think Derrick Henry could just plow through people and carry them to the playoffs once again. However, I think they will be more easy to figure out this time around now that teams are studying them, seeing what the Chiefs did to beat them, seeing what the Ravens didn't do to beat them in the playoffs, etc., etc. So I have the Titans here. Number 6, definitely not bad. I see them basically as the favorites slightly to win that division, but of course we'll have to see. Now, at number 6 here, I have number 7, the Buffalo Bills. Now, this is basically a pick based on the fact that there's not much competition in that division, and I see the Bills edging out, the rest of the competition to win that division and earn themselves a playoff spot. Now, their draft was a productive one as well. I think A.J. Epinesa was a great pick. It's going to help because they just lost Shaq Lawson this offseason. They got a new running back, so, they don't have to lean on Frank Gore. He is, very, very old. Zach Moss, I think that'll be interesting. I think their most interesting pick, actually, though, guys, was Jake Fromm. Because I think finally, Josh Allen's going to have some competition, and he's definitely going to have to step up his game. I think, bringing in that competition is going to be very, very good for him, and he can finally work on being a more accurate passer. But there's not much more else to say. They added Stephon Diggs, so that's a new wide receiver threat, adding that pass rush help that they need, adding another running back to complement Singletary. I think they had an interesting draft, and they're the clear favorites out of the AFC East. I would give the Dolphins, some sort of chance to beat them just because, they're a team rising, they're hungry, but I think right now they're everyone's favorites to sort of win that division. Now, at number 8, and this is definitely an interesting one, I'm going to put the Colts here because I think a lot of people sleep on the Colts, and I think the Colts had an outstanding draft, and I think they have a chance to shock a lot of people. I actually give them a solid chance to win the division over the Tennessee Titans. Of course, I just want to see how those pieces put together works. The only reason I have the Titans ahead of them and winning that division is because I've seen what the Titans can do. I've seen how they're going to beat teams and just maul them on the ground. The Colts have just put all these pieces together, and I want to see how that works. They got DeForest Buckner, though, guys. Michael Pittman Jr., who was a highly touted prospect. Jonathan Taylor, guys, they got in the second round, and I think that is going to be, honestly, their biggest weapon. People talk about their offensive line, and they say, it's basically the best offensive line in football. When they got Quentin Nelson, that whole line just basically turned around. And I think, putting a running back like Jonathan Taylor, who had 2,000 yards in each of his final 2 collegiate seasons, getting a guy like that who's just going to pound the rock, I think he'll come in, and honestly, I think he might take the starting job from Marlon Mack. Do I think that they needed to draft Jonathan Taylor here? No, but I think he could possibly be an upgrade to Marlon Mack, and Marlon Mack did have some injury troubles, so I think, Jonathan Taylor, Phillip Rivers, hopefully, with more time in the pocket, can take care of the football. T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman Jr., they did draft Paris Campbell last season, and I think their defense is definitely solid, and they have depth. I think they're a solid all-around team and a team that's going to shock people. I think a lot of people sleep on the Colts. Once Andrew Luck retired, they just basically threw them out of the window, but I think this is a team that people are definitely going to need to pay attention to, and one that can easily win the AFC South, especially over the Texans this season. The Jaguars are going to be no threat. So right here, I have the Indianapolis Colts. Now, at number 8, I'm going to put the Green Bay Packers. And it sucks. They've definitely dropped in my eyes, and they shouldn't have. It really, really is unfortunate that the Green Bay Packers went with the idea to draft a quarterback and to not help Aaron Rodgers immediately. It really doesn't feel like the Green Bay Packers are in win-now mode. And I think with the quarterback that they have, the Green Bay Packers could have won multiple Super Bowls in recent years, but they just drafted and they don't help Aaron Rodgers. That's basically the main issue. They're not helping Aaron Rodgers. They just think, we have this amazing quarterback. He can make anybody play great, and they don't do what they need to do to make sure he's in the best possible position to win. A stat came out recently. I just saw, I believe it was on ESPN. I'd have to double check, but it was a stat that said it had all these other quarterbacks it was a touchdown passes to first round draft picks all time. And in Aaron Rodgers' 15 years in the league, he's only thrown one touchdown to a first round draft pick. One. Peyton Manning had like 300, something like that. I know Eli Manning was high up there. Brady, I saw, he had 100 some, and I was like, wow. To think about that, because we always talk about how, you always hear Tom Brady has no help, Tom Brady doesn't have receivers, but at least he has first round draft picks. This is one of the most interesting stats I have ever seen. Aaron Rodgers has one touchdown pass to a first round draft pick. I think that's a bit absurd. I think he's been done like injustice. I don't know what the franchise, I don't know if they have something against this man. I don't know if they believe in his talent way too much, but he needs some help. He needed it this draft, and they just did not help him. Unfortunate, but reality. The reason I'm keeping them in the top 10 is because he's so darn good. I think Aaron Rodgers can carry that team to the playoffs yet again. I'm pretty sure they went was it 12-4, 11-3 last season, and while it was kind of a disguised 12-4, I think they were a little bit worse than what their record showed. I think Aaron Rodgers, he always has something to prove. Devontae Adams should come back healthy. He's a stud. Even though they do need other receivers, they lost Geronimo Allison. Aaron Jones was solid. Why their draft confused me. They drafted another running back who's just going to be buried in the depth chart because, Aaron Jones was great. Jamal Williams is a great pass catching back. I don't understand their drafting, but it is what it is. But I'm not going to count Aaron Rodgers out. He's amazing. He's that bad man, like Stephen A. Smith says. And I believe that his team belongs in the top 10 of the power rankings. So with that, though, guys, we're going to take a short break, finish up these power rankings, hopefully. Sorry that, I do kind of go on a bit of a rant about these teams, but I want to give my full opinion, my full analysis on why I'm putting teams in certain places, so I'm not just throwing guys around and just saying this is why they're here. I mean, they're here, and, I'm not going to tell you why. But with that, guys, enjoy this short break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more power rankings.
I want to talk to you guys about this amazing product I've been using lately called Hydrant. If you're like me and you want to kick the coffee habit, but you're worried about your energy levels depleting, to avoid the morning sluggishness and that midday slump, you need to make sure you're hydrated. It's super important. And that's where I've been using Hydrant. And for 25% off your first order, you can go to drinkhydrant.com and enter promo code GSMC at checkout. Hydrant is basically flavored electrolyte packets you mix directly into your water to make hydrating your body easy and delicious. And what I love about Hydrant, it's backed by research. The formula was developed by Oxford scientists to provide perfectly balanced, efficient hydration. Again, that's drinkhydrant.com and enter promo code GSMC for 25% off your first order. Another really cool thing about Hydrant, there's no synthetic colors or artificial sweeteners. The formula is vegan and you can choose between 3 different flavors or a variety pack. So for all my vegan friendly fellows out there, this one's for you. Again, this is drinkhydrant.com and enter promo code GSMC.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alrighty, people, welcome back. We are going to just continue these power rankings. We left off at number 9 with the Green Bay Packers, and I want to round out the top 10, sort of hopping on the bandwagon here, guys. You know, I'm not afraid to admit it sometimes when I just hop on a bandwagon or two, and I'm going to hop on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bandwagon here, guys. I have them at number 10 in my power rankings. I'm believing in the hype. Their offense is looking absolutely insane. And, you know, they went up, they drafted Tristan Wirfs to protect Tom Brady. Clear signal that they're just trying to win now, protect Tom Brady as best he can, give him as many opportunities as possible to put that team in a winning position. And guys, you have to remember their defense was not that bad last year, but when the guy on offense is turning the ball over so many times and you're constantly on the field, constantly tired, of course you're going to let up a bunch of points. It's impossible to defend a team, you know, when you're on the field a ton. Your quarterback turns the ball over 30 plus times just himself. So, you know, never mind the fact that, you know, they got Gronkowski, and I understand that Gronkowski, you know, we think, you know, he's probably going to be a shell of himself. You know, who knows what's going to happen. He took a lot of damage in his time with the Patriots, but who knows what he's been doing, you know, to keep his body healthy and ready, because, you know, I don't think that all of a sudden Gronkowski decided, oh, I think I'm going to go back to the NFL because Tom Brady's not on the Patriots, right? I think it definitely was a thought that was with him for a long time. Even when he decided to retire, he kept that thought in the back of his mind of, you know, one day maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll pull Jason Witten and, you know, come back. But did I think it would have been to the Patriots? Yes. I didn't know that he would follow Tom Brady somewhere else, but it shows his love and devotion to Tom Brady, and I think, you know, their chemistry is going to do wonders for them. It's going to be more about, you know, how well they know each other, the routes that Gronk runs, how Tom Brady, you know, he knows how he likes it thrown to him. He knows when to anticipate a certain cut. That's going to do wonders, and it's going to make up for the lack of, you know, maybe athletic ability that Gronk, you know, that has deteriorated from Gronk's skill set up to this point. I do understand the concern there, but, you know, you have to remember this team still has Cameron Brate. The team still has O.J. Howard, even though they've talked about moving him. They may end up keeping him just to have depth behind, you know, Gronkowski, because, you know, he might be injury prone this coming season. Along with that, you know, it's obvious they have Godwin, they have Mike Evans, you know, Tom Brady. The line wasn't very bad. I'm pretty sure they were ranked in the top 15 according to PFF in pass protection last season. So, you know, they don't struggle there. So this is a team that I think is going to put up a lot of points, and I think honestly they're going to give the Saints a run for their money for that division. I think the Falcons and the Panthers, I don't think are going to be much competition for the Bucs and Saints. I think the Bucs and Saints are in another tier. But don't sleep on the Bucs, guys. I understand, you know, it's easy to get caught up in the hype, and so people sort of sleep on teams just because it's like, I'm not falling into that hype. Tom Brady's old, Tom Brady's washed. But we've been saying Tom Brady, you know, a lot of people have been saying Tom Brady's been washed for quite some time now, and all of them have been wrong, right? So keep an eye on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're my number 10 team. I think they have a really good shot at making the playoffs this season. So, at number 11 here, this is where I'm going to put the Minnesota Vikings. One, because I really like their Justin Jefferson pick. to replace Stephon Diggs, and 2, because, they're a team that finds their way to the playoffs somehow every year anyway. I think that they definitely have a shot to make the playoffs, but they're not a team that I see being a threat for the Super Bowl. I do like their addition of Justin Jefferson on the offense to help Adam Thielen and Kirk Cousins produce, but they're a very run-heavy team. I don't think it's going to change the landscape of the culture there. I think they're still going to be running the ball a ton with Dalvin Cook, but they picked up some pretty good corners, Jeff Gladney and Cameron Dantzler, to shore up the defense a bit and help on that side of the football. So I think they make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be anything crazy, but I give the credit where credit is due. They're a consistent playoff team. I believe they make it again. Now, number 12, right here is where I have the Seattle Seahawks. And I have had the Seattle Seahawks much higher before, and the only reason I'm putting them this low is because I really did not like their draft. I'm not wowed by it. The Jordan Brooks pick in the first round sort of confused me. I didn't really understand why they went with that linebacker there. It felt like there were so many more other linebackers they could have picked. But it is what it is. He will fit eventually when KJ Wright is no longer on that team. But we'll have to see how that plays out. I don't think they got a ton of, nothing really wowed me from their draft. I don't think they're going to be, a much different team. It's going to be a lot of, Russell Wilson carrying that team to the playoffs again. Of course, you have to give them that shot. They definitely are going to make the playoffs, but I just don't know about a deep playoff push or a Super Bowl, contending season. At number 13, yes, that's where we are. This is where I'm putting the Philadelphia Eagles. And, before this draft, I would have put the Eagles higher, closer to the top 10 or, in the top 10. However, they just didn't do enough during this draft for me to push them higher. I really didn't like the Jalen Reagor pick. I mean, I wouldn't say I really didn't like it because I can understand it. He's sort of an explosive he's sort of like a Deshaun Jackson, an explosive playmaker, a guy who's good run after the catch. But he had such a low catch rate that is concerning for me. And for a team that struggled with so many drops, it just was a bad look. It didn't really make any sense. It's like, hey, you're an explosive guy. Wait, you struggle at catching like our receivers? Oh, we'll love to have you. It's just, and I understand there was shoddy quarterback play, but I don't know. I think getting a more complete receiver would have been a little bit of a better pick. The Jalen Hurts pick does nothing for them to win now. And honestly, guys, we have to just talk about it. It is what it is. It is insurance for Carson Wentz. This is not a Taysom Hill running dual packages, and if it is, that's just a masquerade. That's just, to make it seem like, they want to do something cool and new, but it's just to protect Carson Wentz. They don't have faith that he'll stay healthy the entire season. It's clear. You don't get a guy in the second round to only be a backup or to, sort of be an experimental, sort of workup guy. This is a guy that they see who could be a quality starter for them should Carson Wentz get injured, and I think that they expect Carson Wentz not to play 16 games. To me, this pick doesn't make sense for a number of reasons, but I just don't like the pick because it basically says to me, we expect this guy to get hurt, so we need a quality backup who's basically could be a borderline starter in the NFL to make sure he can step in. It's sort of the Nick Foles syndrome. I feel like the Eagles are sort of drunk on their own Kool-Aid as they've been since that Super Bowl, and it just feels like Carson Wentz will take us there, and if we need the backup to win it, we will because we've done it before. For some reason, even though they gave Carson Wentz that mega deal, something is off here with their relationship with Carson Wentz. It just feels like maybe they don't have the most trust in him. Even though, honestly, guys, I really like him as a player. I think he has sort of those intangibles that, you really don't see often. Some of the throws that he makes are pretty insane. I don't think he gets enough credit for them. His team is, he doesn't have any weapons at receiver when they're constantly injured. Oh, and that's another reason I didn't like the Reagor pick. They still have Alshon. They still have Deshaun Jackson, and these other guys who stepped up. Greg Ward, when he stepped up, I don't see him, just suddenly going on the back burner. Arcega Whiteside's still on the team. Other weapons, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. I mean, that's a lot of mouths to feed, and I just don't know if, Jalen Reagor, as of right now, is that guy who's going to pop off the screen and, just move ahead of all those guys on the depth chart. So I have the Eagles here. Now, at 14, this is where I'm going to put the Steelers. The Steelers always find a way to make it to the playoffs. I don't know why, I don't know how, but they always seem to just do well no matter what. And I think, given the circumstances that they were in last season, I would have expected them to have a much worse record, but they didn't. They scratched, they clawed, they fought. And I think, with the addition of Chase Claypool to complement Juju Smith-Schuster, with Ben Roethlisberger being back, it's very, very interesting. They also grabbed a running back who could potentially give, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. James Conner, some competition. The defense is solid. They didn't get to pick in the first round, so this is less about their total draft and more about the talent that they have, the coaching that they have, and where I think they're just going to pick up because their defense is definitely solid. Minkah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Devin Bush. They have a pretty scary defense. Never mind the fact that Cameron Hayward's still on that team. They're just solid all around. So I think for that last playoff spot, that other wild card spot, I would say that they definitely have a shot to do that. That's not saying they're guaranteed to get it just because they're in the 14th ranking, but I think they're definitely better than a lot of other teams in the NFL. Now, for the last spot of my power rankings, at number 15, a team that, I expect them to be better than this position, but after the draft, I kind of was surprised at their pick. Well, actually not very surprised, but anyway, I'll get into that. Right here at 15, guys, I have the Arizona Cardinals. And, you might be surprised I didn't have them higher because I've spoken so highly of them on the show here. But I think that they have a solid chance to come out of that division, either number 2 or even win their division. I'm not scared of the Rams. I'm not scared of the Seahawks. As much as, you would be as the Cardinals of the past. I think the 49ers still take that division, but the Cardinals could fight for a wild card spot. Now, the reason why I have them this low is because they took Isaiah Simmons instead of an offensive lineman. And Isaiah Simmons, listen, he's super talented, super athletic, Swiss Army knife, if there ever was a definition for one. And I love, picking for talent here, but the glaring need was at the offensive line. And I understand they got Josh Jones, but, there was a lot of first round talent, a ton of tackles on the board that were better, more highly touted. And I think that would have been the wiser choice here for Kyler Murray, for this offense and for this team, because, the offensive line last year was pretty poor, to say the least. So I have them here, but look out for the Cardinals, guys. Look out for Kyler Murray to take a leap in his second year, but don't be surprised, guys, if the line really does not improve and they struggle a bit on offense here, because I fully expected them to draft offensive line first. They went with the super talented guy, but it wasn't their need, and I'm not sure it's going to pan out. Now, with that, guys, I'm gonna end the segment here. Those were my power rankings, the post-draft rankings. I went a little over, but that's all right. So we're gonna take a break, and when we get back, we'll talk rookies and more fantasy football. So stay tuned, guys. Enjoy the break.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Alrighty guys, welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And we just got done our post-draft power rankings, so now I want to move on to talking about rookies. And last episode I talked about the rookies and how I thought they were going to do, some of the bigger names and the offensive selections from round one. I told you guys what I thought about their fantasy football potential. But there were some pretty big names in round two as well that I want to go over. Certainly guys who are going to be fantasy relevant or have a lot of potential to be fantasy relevant. So I want to go through those guys as well. And it starts off right off the bat with the first pick of the second round. The Cincinnati Bengals selected T. Higgins. Now, T. Higgins, solid receiver, big guy, 6'4", 216 pounds, and they actually have been comparing him to his teammate, A.J. Green. He has great ball skills, great catch radius, so, he's really similar to A.J. Green. Hopefully, he doesn't have similar injury issues, as A.J. Green. But the problem I see here with T. Higgins is that, A.J. Green is established on the team. They've kept him for a reason. The reports came out that Joe Burrow wanted them to keep A.J. Green. Tyler Boyd has become a reliable starting option in the wake of A.J. Green's injuries. And John Ross, they still have faith in him to become their own version of Tyreek Hill. He hasn't panned out that way. We all know that, but that doesn't mean they don't have faith in him and hope that he might flourish into a more complete receiver. He just has to get over his own injury troubles and become a more complete route runner, not just a guy who can run streaks and burn people down the field. Now, of course, he does have potential to rotate into the starting lineup, but, I think to start the year off, he's not going to be a guy that you should be drafting. I don't know. I guess you could draft him with your, very late round picks, maybe your last round pick. If you're not a guy who drafts kickers or punters in the last round. Not punters. What am I talking about? If you're not a guy who drafts kickers in the last round, then you can maybe get T. Higgins here. But it's going to be a guy you just stash and wait to see if something happens. Now, the next wide receiver selected here was Michael Pittman Jr., and that was to the Indianapolis Colts. Now, he was a guy who was highly touted. He is a great route runner. He can get up and get the ball, the 50-50 ball kind of guy. Now, the only issue with him is that he's not the fastest guy. But you have to remember that, not all great receivers are fast. You know what I mean? I've said this before on the show. Jerry Rice he didn't have Tyreek Hill speed, right? But he somehow was always open. So, it's about your technique. It's about your route running and what you do to get open, not necessarily just blazing past people, right? Because a lot of guys that have a lot of speed, they don't know how to control that speed. It's about having control of your body, being able to get in and out of breaks. That sometimes is more important than just blowing past someone, because you can't just run a streak on every play. Now, he's drawn comparisons to someone like Alshon Jeffrey, a big physical guy, but a guy who's not going to do much after the catch. And I think, it's good that he's on this team. Phillip Rivers is a reliable guy. I know he turns the ball over a ton. But this is going to be a guy, probably, at max right now, flex potential, like so many other receivers in the situations they landed in. And that's because T.Y. Hilton is still on this team, and he's a great receiver. Paris Campbell and Zach Pascal, definitely going to be his competition. But I think, Paris Campbell with the speed will, be more of a deeper threat for fantasy points. And it's going to be taking more shares of passes. And it's just going to be between him and Pascal. But like I said, I don't think Michael Pittman Jr. comes in and makes immediate impact so early on in the season. So again, maybe a late round pick, flex kind of guy. Now, for DeAndre Swift, this is a guy that I'm very interested in because I've heard some experts talk about him and say that they don't like that he's on the Lions, behind Kerryon Johnson. But I loved this pick for the Detroit Lions, guys. And I'm going to say that he has a chance to definitely be an RB2, definitely going to be like a top 20 running back. I know that's not the most attractive, but this guy's a rookie, and the Detroit Lions need an every down guy who's going to stay healthy. I think this was a great value for the round 2 pick. I thought that DeAndre Swift would actually fall to the Chiefs at 32. Of course, we went with Hilaire for obvious reasons, but DeAndre Swift was first round talent, but those teams in the first round didn't have the need at running back, right? So I think now they give competition that's needed for Kerryon Johnson because there's really not any other running back on that team worth mentioning. And, they didn't run the ball a lot last season because they didn't have adequate running backs. I think DeAndre Swift comes in. He doesn't start immediately, but I think he takes over the starting role in Detroit, and they get their every down back that they've been looking for. I think he has a lot of potential. Definitely don't wait till the last couple rounds to pick this guy. I think he's a mid-round kind of guy, a guy people are going to sleep on because he's on a bad team, a team that doesn't have a winning culture. So definitely keep your eyes on DeAndre Swift, guys. He has potential to have a breakout year this year, and I actually believe that. Now, I'm going to move on to another running back. Another guy who was highly touted, talked about as top 3 running back, Jonathan Taylor to the Indianapolis Colts. This guy I'm probably highest on. Besides Edwards-Helaire, just the sheer speed on this guy. He has a ton of wear and tear from college, but to run as fast as he did at the 40, 4.39 40, is pretty insane. And behind that offensive line, he's going to have gaping holes to just burst through. I think this right here was a great fit. I think Marlon Mack is definitely not going to outshine this kid. I think Marlon Mack, he's a solid runner, solid power kind of guy, but I think, with the health troubles recently, there's a reason that they selected Jonathan Taylor here, right? Because, you look at this running back room, Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack, Jordan Wilkins. I don't think you look at that and you say, oh, the Colts need a running back. They just got it basically kind of for luxury, but I think what they were thinking is this guy is an upgrade. And I think Jonathan Taylor is going to figure to be the feature back, but I'm not sure he's going to be, the passing down sort of guy because Nyheim Hines is a great pass catcher. Jonathan Taylor is not going to be, PPR kind of running back. I think, he's definitely going to be better in standard formats, but we've seen guys like Derrick Henry, who really doesn't have pass catching potential, be huge in PPR as well. So just keep your eyes on Jonathan Taylor. He could be a very, very interesting fantasy football option. Now, back to wide receiver at number 42, Laviska Shenault Jr. Went to the Jags. Don't expect much from him. I don't think, he has durability concerns, and, he's not the fastest receiver, and, he's going to be behind DJ Chark, D.D. Westbrook, Chris Conley. I'm really not sure that he's going to be the most attractive rookie coming, even just out of the wide receivers, let alone the class. I think you leave this guy on the draft boards. Don't waste a pick on him. He might, God forbid, one of these guys gets injured, I think that's where he comes in. But the receiving core that they have is pretty well established in Jacksonville. Also, we have to remember, they don't have the greatest quarterback play. So you also have to take that into consideration. Limited snaps, limited quarterback play, not the best for fantasy football. Now, moving forward, Cole Kmet to the Chicago Bears. Now, had this been Cole Kmet to the Green Bay Packers, I'd have been much higher on him. However, when you look at Chicago, they have Jimmy Graham, Demetrius Harris, Adam Shaheen as their top 3 tight ends. I really don't understand the pick here. I mean, I know they're looking for, their breakout star at tight end, but I just feel like they have such a crowded tight end room. There's going to be so much competition. Not to mention Mitchell Trubisky is their quarterback. Now, Cole Kmet was talked about as the best tight end coming out of the class, but I think, to say he's going to be a top tight end, it's still sort of a reach, even though that position is so scarce. The Bears, Mitchell Trubisky is just not the guy. He's not it. I'm not a fan. I've made that clear here. Okay. KJ Hamler to the Denver Broncos. I don't think there's much to say here, guys. I mean, they got Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Melvin Gordon, and Phillip Lindsay catching passes. I really don't think he has much of a role here. Besides, he's going to give you maybe a punt return touchdown or two because he does do special teams. He's a blazer, so maybe Denver wants to, sort of work him in as their own version of Mecole Hardman or Tyreek Hill. But he's gonna basically, you're just gonna want to spend a late round pick on him if you like him. I don't think you need to draft this guy. Same with Chase Claypool, worth a late pick, but I could see why you wouldn't draft him. The Steelers have Juju, they have Deontay Johnson, they have James Washington. It's like these are talented guys who are just going to crowded wide receiver rooms, right? So they have a lot of potential, but it's just not going to work with where they were drafted. So this next pick here is interesting. Cam Akers, Los Angeles Rams. I think he's worth a mid-round pick because I think he actually has potential to take the starting role over for Darrell Henderson. I think this is clearly going to be, they want competition. They want a running back by committee to see who can take over this team. But Cam Akers has had 8 fumbles and 8 drops during each of the past 2 seasons, so that's very concerning. If they can coach him up, I think he has a potential to be a starter. He's not going to be worth an early round pick, a mid to late round pick, where you're going to keep an eye on him to break out would be worth it. Jalen Hurts will be irrelevant next season for fantasy football. There's no reason you should be drafting him unless Carson Wentz gets hurt. Then you pick this guy up. But there's not much to say here. There's no there's no reason to draft him unless Carson Wentz get hurt. Unless you want to draft him because you are like the Eagles brass and you think Carson Wentz is going to get hurt, then you draft him. I think if he starts, yes, he has the potential to have sort of those QB2, QB low end QB1 numbers, but also he has a potential, with his legs. So definitely attractive if he starts, but as of right now, guys, I don't think he's going to be playing. Last one here that I want to go over is J.K. Dobbins of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, J.K. Dobbins was a steal here. They got excellent value for him. I think if he can edge out Gus Edwards, I think he'll actually become one of the bigger threats in the run game. I think Mark Ingram will slowly start to fizzle out as he's getting old, and the efficiency that he had last season is just unsustainable. Definitely keep your eyes on him. I think J.K. Dobbins, he won't start the season, with a big role, but you're going to want to stash him to see what happens, right? Because Mark Ingram is getting older, and clearly they drafted this guy for a reason. Like I said, that running back room was pretty crowded. They still went and got this guy. So very, very interesting here. And with that, guys, we're going to wrap this segment up. And when we get back, we'll keep talking about, post-draft stuff, some trades and things that happen, players moving around, and some in other news. So stay tuned, guys, and enjoy the break.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Alrighty, people, welcome back. Right now, I want to talk about some players that moved around, during or after the draft, and how that affects fantasy football. Now, the first one I want to talk about was the Matt Breida move to the Dolphins. Now, I like Matt Breida as a running back. Super quick guy, has some durability concerns, but I don't like this move to the Miami Dolphins, and it's because he basically is going to make their running back situation how basically the Eagles and the Bears had it with Jordan Howard. I think Jordan Howard just can't catch a break. He can never have his own backfield. When he was in Chicago, Tariq Cohen comes in. He's good at pass catching, very quick guy. They don't see the need for him anymore. He goes to the Eagles, and they draft Miles Sanders, and he comes out as a productive guy, can catch the ball. Something Jordan Howard really is not very good at. They don't need him anymore. Now he goes to Miami, where I thought he might have, sole possession of this backfield and all the touches, and then they get Matt Breida, who can catch the ball and fly out of the backfield. So this doesn't really figure to be very good for Jordan Howard. I think, yes, he gets the goal line touches, which is great for standard, but I think for, PPR leagues, you're definitely going to want to devalue him after this move. Don't necessarily agree with it, as I figured the Miami Dolphins were going to take a running back like Jonathan Taylor or DeAndre Swift. I didn't think, I thought at the end of the round there, the first round, that they were going to pick up a running back. They didn't, and, they filled the hole. I'm pretty sure that's where they selected the cornerback, but whose name is very hard to pronounce. I think it's Noah Igbinoghene, I believe his name is, off the top of my head, sorry. But yeah, so not necessarily the best move for fantasy football. It gives them a 1-2 punch, but it's hard unless it's Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, which is very rare to be that productive, that a 1-2 punch really serves anyone well in fantasy football. Now, I really like the Trent Williams move to the 49ers. I think, I've been talking, supporting Trent Williams for how long now? I've been saying the 49ers should just let this man go. I think, the 49ers are going to have to pay up. He's going to want, the reports are that they're working on a deal, and they've said, the deal's going to work itself out. But they didn't have to give much up to get him from the Redskins. I believe it was mid-round picks for him. This guy was, perennial Pro Bowler type player, good left tackle, great replacement for Joe Staley, who just recently retired. And I think, it's basically like Joe Staley's gone, but you get a high caliber guy, fits right back in, and you keep it pushing. A team like the 49ers definitely needed this pickup. I like it a lot. They're trying to help Jimmy Garoppolo, any way they can. Of course, I've discussed my dislike for Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think he's the guy to do it, to take a team to a Super Bowl and win it. We saw it last season. I think the 49ers season was a bit fluky. I don't see them getting back to the Super Bowl again, and maybe not anytime soon. I think they were basically a year early, and now they've lost some key pieces that I don't know they'll be able to make up. So we'll have to see what happens, but it is what it is. They made a good move here, though, and I do like that. So, yeah. So now I want to get into some other news here, because I thought this was very, very interesting. The NFL has announced that every NFC East team will get an international player as part of their program for the, they do international sort of outreach. And I really, really like this. It happened I remember, I think it was a year or two ago, where Christian Wade, I think he was a rugby player. He was getting a lot of attention. I think he's on the Buffalo Bills. As a rugby player converting to football, and it was all over ESPN, things like that. And I just wanted to give my thoughts on that because I really, really like this move by the NFL. I think it's a wise way, one, to give guys a shot at playing this sport, and two, to increase your outreach. I love all the international games, the London games, the Mexico games. I think it's very, very cool. And my family actually, I have a brother-in-law who is, he was born and raised in the UK. And, American football really is not as popular over there. And I think, making the American football, sort of, a global sport that people watch, even though they're not from the United States, would be very, very interesting. Americans watch soccer, but a lot of America's favorite teams aren't the U.S. team. You know what I mean? They watch sort of, the teams from Spain, and teams that are all over the world. And I think, bringing that sort of attention to American football across the world would be, one, it's going to be great for revenue, and two, I think it would just bring more appreciation for the sport. I think, there's a lot of stereotypes surrounding football that it's just for savages and brutes that like to hit each other, but there is art in the game of football, and I think it's definitely something that should be appreciated more. So I really like this move. I think they should definitely keep it up, definitely keep up the international games. I know last season the Mexico game got botched, but we ended up with a great game in LA with the Chiefs. But definitely a good move. Just wanted to show my support for that because I know people don't necessarily care to get up at 9 a.m. to watch football games that are taking place in London, but it's worth what it could potentially bring. So I think that's really, really cool. Now, one other thing I want to talk about in other news was Leonard Fournette, because like I've mentioned before, I was wrong. I was just dead wrong. I figured he would most likely be traded on draft day, but he never was. The came and went. I was waiting for it to happen, but it looks like now that Leonard Fournette is going to be sticking with the Jaguars. I mean, after that, during the draft, they said several teams called, Tampa Bay being one of those teams, which would have been pretty insane to put him on that offense. It would probably just basically secure a run to the Super Bowl at this point, unless Tom Brady really is finally washed up like everyone kind of wants him to be at this point. But Leonard Fournette is sticking with the Jags, it seems, and he seems pretty motivated. He's posted on social media that he's going to be working his tail off no matter what team he plays for. He said he doesn't know what the future holds, but he's going to work very hard. So I just wanted to give that little update there because, like I said, I really thought he would be traded. And it was actually kind of surprising. He came off of a career year. He rushed over 1,100 yards. Yes, of course, the touchdown production was lacking, but, that's something that a team could fix just by, giving him snaps at the goal line. Either way, though, guys, he's going to put in work. He's definitely stay on your radar. I don't think he'll be a Jag much longer after this. I don't think they'll pick up his fifth-year option. But of course, a trade could still be in the works. They could still be talking to some teams who may have missed on their guy at the draft and are interested in Leonard Fournette. But I mean, the relationship is very, very rocky. It seems like that franchise really is just, I don't know what the players have against that franchise, but they're doing something wrong, right? Because we saw this with Unique Ngakoue recently as well. All the tension with their players, even with Jalen Ramsey, and it's just not looking good. So. Of course, we'll have to wait and see, but honestly, no matter where Leonard Fournette is, I think he's going to put up some good fantasy numbers, so keep an eye on him. With that, guys, we're going to take our last break of the show and then get into our final segment, so stay right there, and we'll be right back before you know it.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We are now in our final segment for today, and basically what I want to do today is just kind of talk about some things that have been on my mind, but that I haven't necessarily addressed on the show, and just leave you guys with my thoughts on them to wrap up the episode for today. So first, guys, I want to talk about the incidents that have happened with Tom Brady recently. And I want to do that because, I kind of, I gave Dak Prescott, my thoughts about his actions and sort of put him through the ringer there. And I think it would be unfair of me to only do that to him because I also am disappointed in Tom Brady a bit. Now, there were reports that Tom Brady went to work out at a park or what have you that was closed, and he was kicked out of there. And then there were reports that came out that Tom Brady accidentally walked into a stranger's home because he thought it was the home of Byron Leftwich, his offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. Now, on the surface, these stories, they're kind of treated sort of, surface level for what they were. Oh, he got kicked out of the park, haha. Oh, he stumbled into someone's home, haha. It's kind of funny. But at this point in time, I'm having a hard time understanding why we aren't condemning Tom Brady as we did Dak Prescott. Now, I understand that Dak Prescott was a bit different. He was, throwing a party with a bunch of people there, and Tom Brady just violated the protocol to go work out himself. But, I mean, he still should be social distancing. He still should be staying at home. And he shouldn't be, going out to see anyone, even if it's his coach. The league has rules, concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. They're not supposed to be going to team facilities or, they're not supposed to have any in-person meetings with anyone from staff. Yet, Tom Brady was going to Byron Leftwich's house. For what reason? It doesn't matter what he was doing. You know what I mean? So, I'm not really sure that this makes any sense. There was talk about the duffel bags and what was in them, and the explanation was that Brady was meeting him to pick up a playbook. I really don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why did he have bags? What was he dropping off? It doesn't really matter what he was dropping off, and even if he's just coming to pick up a playbook, that's not allowed. Technically, they could send pictures of the playbook and send those over by email. It doesn't have to be an in-person meeting. So I just want to express my discontent with Tom Brady there. He's more responsible than that. He's, no matter what I think of, the Patriots franchise, Tom Brady's, is a respectable guy. That's unacceptable for someone who's a leader in this league. And, I condemn Dak Prescott for it, so I'm condemning Tom Brady here for it. We should all be home, being responsible, not seeing anyone. So, it's a little bit disappointing. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about that has to do with Tom Brady as well is him sort of coming in and changing the culture in Tampa Bay. I've seen, people calling it Tampa Bay, and I really, really like this whole culture shift. I think now that Tom Brady's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, people aren't thinking of them as just some bum team that barely can scrape through and never get to the playoffs. I think, Tom Brady to the Buccaneers was a great move, not only for him, but for football in general, and definitely for that franchise. I think they're going to get a ton of bandwagon fans or fans of Tom Brady who will follow him anywhere, sort of how, there's a lot of diehard LeBron fans that, they like the Lakers, they liked the Cavaliers when he was there, and they liked the Heat when he was there. I think this is, really, really interesting, and I really like this for the league because, teams, I love my own team to death. I'm a diehard fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, but I do like to see other teams succeed as well, and I actually sort of feel bad for teams like the Chargers, that can't fill the seats or get people to come to their games, because I love the sport, and I want to see the sport succeed in all facets, and so that's also another reason why I was rooting for Tom Brady to go to the Chargers, is because they need to sell tickets, and Tom Brady to the Chargers would have definitely sold some tickets. But I appreciate what Tom's trying to do in Tampa Bay, making it, it's basically his new era. It's a new chapter in his life, and I like that it doesn't feel like, I just came here for a last ride to win a Super Bowl. Of course, we all know that's what he's doing, But it feels more special than that. It feels like he's happy with this new chapter in his life. He genuinely seems happy to be in Tampa Bay, and it's going to translate onto the football field. So I'm excited to see what happens. Also, Tom Brady bringing Gronk to that franchise, just bringing that chemistry and that energy is also going to be very, very cool to see and to watch. I think they're going to be a very fun football team to watch, guys. I think, no matter what you think of Tom Brady and the Patriots franchise, I think this is also, good for Tom Brady's image as well, separating himself from a franchise that a lot of people, think of as cheaters, just liars, and the one that is constantly involved in scandals. So I really like this all, and I can't wait to see it translate on the football field. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the unfortunate reality that the league is sort of changing its tone about the start of the new season. There have been talks that, the league is planning for, it's basically like a just in case that the league might not start on time. And while that really, really sucks, because, nobody wants to miss football, especially after all this, it's like football season coming up is the last resort. It'll feel like we're finally back to normal, if football can start on time. But if it doesn't, it only means that we're still going through this. So while it does suck, it's something that's necessary, and we definitely shouldn't be against, them pushing back the start of the league year, for health reasons. Of course, we want to watch football. We want it now. That's what the XFL was trying to, their market was, fans who want to watch football when the NFL season is over. Of course, we want football, but, it looks like, that the league at least is thinking about a scenario in which we might have to wait. And, if we do, it is what it is. It's definitely worth it. This whole situation is actually crazy to think about. I think about it more and more every day that we're basically living through history. And, later generations are going to be reading about the COVID-19 pandemic when they're coming up in school. And, we're living through that right now. So we do have to think about this as something much bigger than us, and continue to work together. And with that, guys, I'm going to end the show here today. I want to thank you for listening to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, guys. I want to ask that you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Leave a comment below, guys, and, let us know, what are we doing wrong? What are we doing bad? What are we doing that you love? Because that helps us. As long as you keep it constructive and respectful, I would love to hear, if there's something you don't like, maybe I can work on that as well. Of course, guys, I want to ask that, you guys stay safe. You guys stay socially distanced, and keep up, all the good work that you guys have been doing, if you're responsible. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Have a good night. This has been Marcus Vargas on the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. See you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.